Hello everyone, my name is Maria Castro, and I'm a political science and international studies double major. Today, I will be talking to you about breaking the glass ceiling, women's road to governance. I chose this topic because as someone who would like to pursue political office one day, I wanted to gain a better idea of why women do not run for office, especially as data has shown that women tend to win at the same, if not at better levels than their male counterparts. Also, seeing that women make up over half the United States population, but only make up about 1/4 of our state legislature and congressional seats was a little bit concerning to me, and I kind of wanted to get a better idea as to why this is the case. Despite record-breaking numbers of women winning in 2018 election, the trend has not always been consistent over time. So, if the issue is not centered around getting women elected, but rather getting them to initially consider running, why do we not see an increase nationally in women running for these offices, and what kinds of programs can be promoted to encourage these women to run? Well, my research suggests that women do not run for political office due to three types of traditional gender socialization impairments that they face when deciding to run for office, and because of this, it affects the opportunity for gender parity. Educational initiatives, an emphasis on sports and leadership, and youth-oriented programs for girls may help mitigate this gap. For my research, I primarily used Jennifer Lawless's book, It Still Takes a Candidate: Why Women Don't Run for Office, as a framework for this research, as well as research from other scholars in order to attempt to answer these questions. Lawless explains traditional gender socialization as the great complexities of women's lives in terms of how both society perceives them and the manner in which they perceive themselves as eligible candidates. These impairments affect how women in particular deal with personal and societal impairments as they go on to navigate the political world. The first impairment is traditional family role orientations, which overall describes the roles that each gender has within as well as outside their traditional family structure. They can often be cultivated from a difference in upbringing all the way to life as an adult within a family. There are differences that each gender faces with regard to their own expectations of how they prioritize what they face, particularly within heteronormative family. Women on average have disproportionate familial obligations in comparison to their husband, which ends up limiting their time that they can dedicate to other pursuits, especially if they're already working a full-time job. Campaigning in and of itself can be considered a full-time job, especially once many factors like canvassing, phone banking, fundraising, traveling are considered, making the decision much more difficult to make, especially if they are currently raising children. If women have an interest in running for office, they may decide to wait until their children are older or until they have less familial and work obligations to deal with. This often affects the age difference among policymakers. In the dataset below, it currently shows the current makeup of our Congress. It is an interactive piece that helps reflect different demographics that our current Congress represents. We start off with all 535 members of Congress, but when you change the settings to reflect only Congresswomen, the number winds down to 126. For Congresswomen under the age of 35, only 5 are reflected in comparison to 6 men. The parity gap begins to become more apparent as you move through the next few age categories. For members between the ages of 39 to 49, you have 24 Congresswomen to 97 Congressmen. Between the ages of 50 to 64, you have 50 Congresswomen to 176 Congressmen. And finally, for any member over the age of 65, you have 47 Congresswomen to 130 Congressmen. So, although there were huge wins in 2018 for women, it is still clear that there's still a long way to go before we can achieve gender parity. With masculinized ethos, you have a problem that presents itself with industries and professions that are not as likely to reach out to women and encourage them to run for office at the same rates that they would encourage men working in the same professions. Rutgers University political science professor Kirsten Bamatsu explains the concept of a social eligibility pool, which allows for political parties to provide an ample base that is representational of the mass public, therefore creating a platform for which women are able to climb up a party ladder. Both parties have struggled to try to figure out a way in which they can reach out to women within their parties. Groups like Emily's List have been able to find more success within this realm in recent years. There are problems that arise from utilizing identity politics that both parties are faced with, as well as choosing the best candidate for the position. But this begs the question, is the best candidate even being encouraged to run, or given the necessary resources to win? Our last impairment is gendered psyche. This impairment is a lot more internal than the other two, but it does continue to affect how women perceive their qualifications and experiences in relation to their decision to run for office. Women believe that they need to be more qualified and more politically knowledgeable than their opponent. However, this continues to feed into an imposter syndrome that can challenge women's negative perceptions of their own accomplishments. This impairment becomes much more dimensional when you also take into consideration the role that intersectionality plays for women of color. Former Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams highlights moments where she has experienced these same emotions of self-doubt and the need to be better qualified than her opponent during her campaign. However, her experiences at Spelman College have prepared her to be able to tackle those negative voices and still push through regardless. So, why does this matter? Overall, representation matters, especially to communities whose voices have been constantly ignored by policymakers who don't understand the struggles that their constituents face. When women are elected, they are more likely to advocate for issues that are rarely addressed. They not only influence policy areas that are stereotypically referred to as feminine, like education and healthcare, but they also are instrumental in influencing policy surrounding homeland security and governmental affairs, as well as foreign relations. Countries that have had women take a more active role within their political systems have seen more social and economic benefits as a result. In my research, I've proposed 3 initiatives that are currently in effect in some form or another, or can be improved upon for the future to help mitigate this gender parity gap that we see in the United States. High-quality civics education in public K-12 institutions can provide students a proper foundation of civics knowledge and skills that can be taught theoretically and applied within their own communities. The knowledge that they learn as a result will help them engage at an early age and prepare them to have better political discussions. From the Brown Center report, there are few states that have implemented a more comprehensive civic education curriculum. As a result, they saw better grades overall, as well as more community engagement within academically related programs such as mock trial and Model U United Nations, and within service-oriented organizations in their community. Sports have also provided a crucial role in creating considerable amounts of leadership and community involvement opportunities for young women. Thanks to the passage of Title IX, this has also helped ensure many equal protections for young women across the country. As founder of Women's Sports Foundation, Billie Jean King also made it a point to continue ensuring proper accessibility to these sports programs, as well as providing adequate resources to extend these opportunities to as many young women as possible. There are still many strides to be made in this area, but further legislation can continue to help ensure equal protections are maintained and enforced. Lastly, youth-oriented programs have provided further development of leadership skills, as well as tackling areas of personal growth. Girl Talk began and has evolved to serve as a program that provides affordable and accessible lifelong leader networks that allow young women to connect with their own peers, provide solutions to issues young women face, and help them understand their leadership potential. The Girl Scouts of America similarly focuses on several values, such as providing leadership skills, strongly supporting STEM development, and creating community-oriented environments that will help young women grow as leaders in their communities. The Girl Scouts also place strong emphasis on public policy advocacy and encourage the troops to learn more about what is being done in this realm. So, this begs the question, will the United States ever achieve gender parity? Given current trends that are happening within our government, it is difficult to assess that we will ever achieve gender parity in our elected offices anytime soon. This is not to say that the United States could not achieve gender parity. Yet, there are still several factors that need to be put into place in order to make sure that the current political climate is a lot more adaptable to these changes. Nonetheless, if we produce programs and legislation that benefit young girls much earlier in their lives, we could potentially see a dramatic shift in the number of women who would consider running for office, and feel as though that they have the proper foundation and requisites to pursue this. I am definitely optimistic about what the future holds for more women in political offices, and I can't wait to see how this develops over time. So, thank you for your time, and I would like to thank my mentor and advisor, Dr. Heather Hahn, for providing me guidance and assistance during my research. Thank you.